My name is Dennis Hunter, and welcome to this Plankk Live meditation for everyone. For those of you who joined last week, this week we'll be doing a pretty similar kind of meditation as what we did last week. It's a basic mindfulness practice, but rather than thinking of this as something repetitive, it's really key to me to think of this as a foundational practice that we keep returning to for our whole lives, because in the tradition in which I was trained, which is the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, this underlying practice of mindfulness is really the foundation on which any other kind of practice can be built. So we could move on to do other kinds of practices, and we will in this weekly series, such as loving kindness and other kinds of meditation. But all of those things are really built on the foundation of being able to just be present and stay in the present moment. And it's really through the practice of mindfulness that we train our minds in that ability to just rest in the present moment and to recognize when we're distracted and when we're pulled away by a thought or something in the environment, bring ourselves back and just keep practicing staying in the present moment. So what we'll be working with today in terms of an object of meditation is just our breath, our natural breath, however we find it to be in this moment. So there are other kinds of meditation practices where we breathe in a particular way, we use our breath to achieve a specific effect, but in this case we're just noticing how the body breathes naturally in the moment, however it happens to be breathing. So I'd like to share a quote before we begin with our practice. This comes from Jon Kabat-Zinn's book, Wherever You Go, There You Are. And it's a quote where he talks about the importance of the breath. It's called Keeping the Breath in Mind. It helps to have a focus for your attention, an anchor line to tether you to the present moment and to guide you back when the mind wanders. The breath serves this purpose exceedingly well. It can be a true ally. Bringing awareness to our breathing, we remind ourselves that we are here now, so we might as well be fully awake for whatever is already happening. And I apologize for a few distracting sounds in the environment here. They chose this moment while we're doing our meditation to empty the dumpsters in the building across the street. So that's just one of those distractions that he talks about that we have to work with in practice. He says our breathing can help us in capturing our moments. It's surprising that more people don't know about this. After all, the breath is always here, right under our noses. You would think just by chance we might have come across its usefulness at one point or another. We even have phrases like, I didn't have a moment to breathe, or to catch my breath, to give a hint that moments and breathing might be connected in an interesting way. To use your breathing to nurture mindfulness, just tune into the feeling of it, the feeling of the breath coming into your body and the feeling of the breath leaving your body. That's all. Just feeling the breath. Breathing and knowing that you're breathing. This doesn't mean deep breathing or forcing your breathing or trying to feel something special or wondering whether you're doing it right. It doesn't mean thinking about your breath either. It's just a bare bones awareness of the breath moving in and the breath moving out. And it doesn't have to be for a long time at any one stretch. So during this practice we'll be doing a few small segments and I'll be breaking that up with some commentary. Using the breath to bring us back to the present moment takes no time at all, only a shift in attention. But great adventures await you if you give yourself a little time to string moments of awareness together, breath by breath, moment to moment. So I really like the way that he describes the role of the breath and the importance of the breath in helping us cultivate this moment-to-moment awareness. So go ahead and find a position to sit that's comfortable for you if you haven't done so already. You could be seated on the floor with cushions, which are behind me. You could sit in a chair if you like. You could even lie down if that's necessary in the moment. But if you do lie down, just try to maintain your presence and your awareness and not drift off into sleep, which tends to happen a lot of the times when we lie down. The most important thing is to be comfortable and to be upright and relaxed within your body. So maybe take a moment just to establish your posture, rolling your shoulders back and down, allowing your neck to lengthen along the back side of the neck, maybe tucking your chin in just a little bit. And allow your eyes to softly close. This is perhaps the only class on Plankk Live where you don't have to watch the instructor. You can actually just close your eyes and listen to my voice, and I'll guide you through the practice. But really, you don't need to watch me necessarily unless you want to refer to my posture to see the way I'm sitting or anything like that. But basically, it really helps to close the eyes and allow the attention to start to turn inward. And I'll speak a little bit more about that as we get into the practice. So having found a comfortable, relaxed position in which you can sit for the next little while, make a commitment to yourself. And this is not a commitment to anyone else. There's no meditation police who will be watching you and making sure that you're still, but just make a commitment to yourself that to the best of your ability for the next little while we engage in this practice, that you'll be still to the best of your ability. So that means, for example, whenever the urge comes along to scratch an itch, maybe pause and give that itch 3 breaths before you move to scratch it. And maybe it's still there at the end of 3 breaths, in which case you go ahead and scratch it. Maybe it's gone by then. And you might start to notice that there are sometimes these patterns of the mind just creating habitual distractions for us within the body in the form of restlessness and sensations that help to pull our attention out of the present moment and actually sort of just give us entertainment and things to do that pull our attention away. So make this commitment to yourself that to the best of your ability while we're practicing, you'll be as still within your body as you possibly can. And being still within the body in turn helps to create a sense of stillness within the mind. And begin to draw your awareness towards your breath, noticing the natural movement of your breath as your breath comes in and as your breath goes out. Again, not trying to breathe in any particular way in this case, but just noticing however your body happens to be breathing in this moment and allowing your awareness to gently rest on that perception, on that sensation of the breath. For each of us, that awareness of the breath, the place where we notice the breath, might be a little bit different. So you might notice the breath in the movement of your lower belly and your chest as they expand and contract with each inhalation and exhalation. You might notice the breath at the tip of your nose as the air comes in and goes out. There's a slight tickling sensation. if you really begin to tune into the detail of that sensation at the tip of your nose, you might notice that as the air comes in from the outside world, it's a little bit cooler in temperature. And then as the air leaves the body, it's a little bit warmer. So you could begin to tune into that level of detail, that level of precision of noticing the sensations of the breath within the body as they're happening. And then, of course, what happens sooner or later, when we're new to meditation, it tends to happen quite soon. Even sometimes when we've been practicing a long time, it still happens quite soon. That something draws the attention away, whether it's a distraction in the environment, a sound that catches your attention, and then you start thinking about what that sound is, or it's a memory of something that happened in the past, and you start reflecting on, what that conversation that you had with your coworker yesterday, and what you said, and what you could have said, what you should have said, or perhaps all kinds of emotional content starts coming up around that situation from the past. It could be anything. And the other place that our mind tends to wander during meditation and in life in general is into the future. So wandering into things that haven't actually happened yet, anticipating the future, planning in our minds, scheming and hoping and daydreaming and imagining future scenarios. And again, a lot of emotional content might also arise in relationship to that, things that we hope for that will come to be, things that we're afraid of, that we don't want to come to be. So in thinking about the past or the future, there's a lot of rabbit holes that our mind tends to go down. And the practice of mindfulness is really about recognizing whenever our mind has been pulled down one of those rabbit holes, the past or the future, or some kind of discursive commentary about the present moment, and just gently, in a way that's friendly towards ourselves, unhooking our attention from that distraction, from that thought, from that rabbit hole that we've gone down, and just bringing ourselves back to the present moment, back to this breath that's already happening here and now. So I'll ring the bell now to symbolize the formal beginning of our practice session together, and we'll practice for a few minutes this way. So go ahead and resume your comfortable posture and make that commitment just to yourself that during this practice for the next little bit you'll be as still as possible within your body. I'll ring the bell again at the end of this segment of practice. So once again, as a reminder, or for those of you who have just tuned in and are joining us, we are engaging in a mindfulness practice that involves placing our attention on the breath in a very simple way. Just noticing the sensations of the breath coming and going within the body. And like I'm doing, you may wish to close your eyes completely so that you can direct your attention more within and be more attuned to the sensations of your breath. Some people prefer to meditate with eyes open, and that's fine. If you do meditate with eyes open, it's generally suggested that you lower your gaze and look at a spot on the floor, maybe 3 or 4 feet in front of you, so that the eyes are not out wandering around. Because where the eyes go, the attention, the mind tends to follow. So it's okay during this video teaching to not look at the video and just close your eyes and listen to my voice and follow along with the instruction. And the object of our meditation here, in this case, is the breath, which is a very interesting object of meditation if we really pay attention to it, because the breath is always only happening in the present moment. So when we attune our attention to the breath, we're automatically, by default, attuning our attention to the present moment. And it's somewhat inevitable that, as I mentioned before, sooner or later, it might be in a few seconds, it might be in a few minutes, the attention will decay and the mind will wander, and we'll realize that, oh, I've been thinking for a while. And that's okay. That's the moment when we recognize, okay, I can let go of this thought, I can bring myself back, I can start fresh with this breath that's happening now. And often the practice is just continually bringing ourselves back and starting fresh with this breath, this breath, this breath. And we do this in a way that is gentle and friendly towards ourselves, rather than beating ourselves up for being distracted or assuming that we're a bad meditator, that meditation is not for us just because we have thoughts. Everyone has thoughts, and everyone encounters this same waterfall of thoughts in the beginning of practice, but with consistent practice over time, we begin to create more space around the thoughts, and we start to see that thoughts can come and thoughts can go, and we don't get so hooked by them, holding on to the ones that we think are good, pushing away the ones that we think are bad. All of that is just within the context of this practice. It's just more thinking. So, to the best of your ability, just let go of all that and keep bringing your attention back to the breath that is already happening right here, right now. Once again, noticing where your attention is, and if it's not with the breath, gently bringing yourself back and starting again with noticing the breath that's happening now. Whenever there are sounds in the environment that might pull your attention away into a distraction, just notice that. And again, the instruction is the same, just bring your attention back to the breath, letting go of the tendency to get hooked by the sound, the sensation, the thought. Each time starting fresh in the present moment with the breath that's already happening. And there's an additional aspect, an additional layer that we could add to this practice. It's particularly useful during times when the mind is particularly active and there seem to be a lot of thoughts pulling the attention away. Or if you're particularly new to the practice, it can be very helpful. And it involves counting the breath. So just simply counting each cycle of the breath as you breathe in and then breathe out. Count that as 1. And then again you breathe in and breathe out in your mind, just silently, gently count that as 2. And then again, breathing in, breathing out, count that as 3. And if you get all the way up to 10 without your mind drifting into a distraction, then come back to 1 and start again. If you keep going, then sometimes it tends to become a competition with yourself to see how high you can count, and that becomes an obstacle in itself. So just come back to 1 and start fresh. See how it goes. And once again, for those of you who might have been joining us during the broadcast, we're simply resting our attention on the natural process of breathing and bringing our attention back each time that we notice that the attention has wandered away from the breath, away from the present moment. So this is fundamentally the practice of mindfulness, the practice of being mindful of each moment, one moment to the next, and using the breath as an anchor, as an object of meditation to help us tether our attention to the present moment. And the breath is very useful in that regard because the breath is always happening in the present moment. So whenever we tune our awareness to the breath, we're automatically tuning our awareness to the present moment. And mindfulness, like any other form of practice, any other kind of training, does require some consistency in order to start to reap the benefits and develop the habit. So it's generally suggested that rather than trying to practice mindfulness once in a while, that you do a little bit every day. And it's a little bit like brushing your teeth. You know, you don't brush your teeth for 2 hours on Saturday and then ignore your teeth for the rest of the week. You brush your teeth a little bit every day, and that's what helps keep your mouth healthy. So it's a little bit like that with your mind. If you carve out a little bit of time in your day, each day, even if it's just 5 minutes, even if it's just 1 minute, to just find a moment for yourself to be silent, to be still, and to tune your awareness into the breath. And just do that every day. Perhaps at the same time, maybe you carve out a time in the morning or in the evening when you do the practice. It's that consistency of the practice over time that will start to establish the neural grooves within your brain and the habits within your body and your mind that will support the growth of this ability to be more mindful in everyday life. So really the point of a practice like this is not to become really good at sitting still and resting the attention on the breath. The point of the practice is to be more mindful in everyday life. So to be more mindful in our work, in our relationships, in our consumption, in our activities, just to be more mindful in moment to moment of our everyday lives. But this is where we go to, sit on the cushion and engage in the formal practice that helps us develop the habit that enables us to be present that way in our everyday lives. But in order to do that and cultivate that habit, it's like any other form of training, whether it would be spinning or high intensity interval training or anything that requires dedication and consistency. Mindfulness is very much like that. It requires a commitment from you to yourself to carve out a space within your life to sit, be still, tune your awareness into the present moment, using something like the breath as an object to help you stay present, and then working with the habitual patterns of your mind, which inevitably will pull your attention away again and again and again, because we have such strong conditioning within our minds to not really be present most of the time, to not be here, not be in the now, but to always be kind of off thinking about the past or off thinking about the future, or engaged in some kind of discursive commentary or analysis about what's happening right now. And the practice of mindfulness is really about recognizing all of those things as ways of not really fully being present and unhooking ourselves from them and practicing just being here in the most simple way possible. Just noticing what's already happening, which is this human body is sitting here and it's breathing. And I'm just noticing the breath coming in and going out. And I just keep bringing my awareness back to that again and again. Just be continuing with this practice for a couple more minutes. Gently resting your awareness on the breath. And anytime you notice that the attention has wandered, gently bring it back. And always with this attitude of friendliness towards yourself, rather than any kind of aggressive beating yourself up for being distracted or letting the attention wander. Always coming back with an attitude of friendliness. The practice of mindfulness and the practice of meditation in general is often described as the practice of making friends with our own minds. So that attitude of friendliness is really important. So the bell symbolizes the beginning and the end of our formal practice session. So feel free to, if you need to come out of your meditation posture and stretch your legs, feel free to do that. I'd like to share a quote with you before we end the practice, which comes from one of my teachers, Pema Chodron, a very well-known Buddhist nun with a lot of best-selling books. I lived in the monastery where she is the main teacher for 2 years as a Buddhist monk. And she says, in regards to what this practice can help us cultivate is a sense of rejoicing in ordinary life, in everyday life. So she says, we can learn to rejoice in even the smallest blessings our life holds. It is easy to miss our own good fortune. Often happiness comes in ways we don't even notice. It's like a cartoon I saw of an astonished looking man saying, "What was that?" And the caption below read, "Bob experiences a moment of well-being." The ordinariness of our good fortune can make it hard to catch. The key is to be here, fully connected with the moment, paying attention to the details of ordinary life. By taking care of ordinary things, our pots and pans, our clothing, our teeth, we rejoice in them. When we scrub a vegetable or brush our hair, we are expressing appreciation, friendship toward ourselves, and toward the living quality that is found in everything. This combination of mindfulness and appreciation connects us fully with reality and brings us joy. So that to me is really, really key, and something I like to keep in mind. This practice is a combination of mindfulness and appreciation that is intended not only to help us connect more fully with the reality of the present moment, but to help us cultivate joy. In the yogic tradition, we talk about santosha, which is a sense of contentment, and I think of those two things as being very much related. A sense of being content with the wonderful good fortune that we have in our lives and appreciating everything that is good about the present moment. So I'd like to thank you very much for joining and sharing in this practice today. Again, my name is Dennis Hunter. You can learn more about me and my teachings and my books. One of them is right here behind me. It's called The 4 Reminders. You can visit my website, DennisHunterMeditation.com. If you're interested in the book specifically, it has its own website, the4reminders.com. And I look forward to seeing you next week. Have a great week, everyone.